My father disowned me for my job, but my millionaire grandmother had other plans. My name is Olivia Fletcher. I'm 27 years old, and I never thought my choice to pursue a career as a carpenter would spark a family conflict, one that would alter our lives permanently. I come from a distinguished lineage. For 3 generations, the Fletcher name has been tied to the architectural profession. My father, Victor Fletcher, runs one of the city's most influential and admired architectural firms, specializing in massive commercial buildings. My older brother Nathan followed his example, earning top marks at the same prestigious architectural school our father attended. Everyone expected, practically assumed I'd take the same route, but I had other ideas. What do you mean you're not studying architecture? My father's voice thundered through his sleek office the day I shared my decision at 18. His modern glass and steel desk, always a formidable sight, gleamed coldly between us. The walls around us were covered with framed magazine covers featuring his large-scale commercial projects and prestigious design awards. "It's our family's legacy," he pressed, his face twisting with something between shock and disgust. I could feel the chill of the minimalist space growing even colder around us. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding against my ribs, and explained, "I want to create things with wood, Dad. To shape them with my own hands and see real, tangible outcomes. I want to build furniture that families will treasure for generations." "A carpenter?" He slipped off his expensive designer glasses, rubbing his forehead as if my words caused him physical pain. His fingers, smooth and unmarked by manual labor, pressed against his temples. "My daughter, a common woodworker. This isn't the 1800s, Olivia." My mother, Diane, always the peacemaker, touched his arm gently. Her fingers bore the faint traces of her own suppressed creativity, small calluses from the sketching she did in private. "Perhaps we should think about—" "No!" His fist struck the desk, the sound echoing harshly against the concrete walls. The architectural models of his latest shopping mall project trembled. "No child of mine will squander the Fletcher name making chairs and tables. It's impractical, unprofitable, and completely outdated." I felt the weight of his disapproval crushing down on me, but something inside refused to bend. A fire had been lit in me years ago, when I was just 6 and my grandfather first placed a small piece of wood and a safe carving tool in my hands. A week later, I enrolled in a traditional woodworking guild, focused on furniture craftsmanship and design. True to his word, my father cut off all financial support. I would have been entirely on my own if not for Grandma Eleanor. Unlike the rest of my family, who cherished prestigious commissions, industry awards, and elite networks, she valued craftsmanship and authenticity. She'd accumulated her wealth not through mass-produced designs, but through her expertise in restoring priceless antiques and her shrewd investments in historical properties. "Follow your passion, Olivia," she said, pressing an ornately carved wooden box into my hands. Inside lay not just enough money for my education, but her own set of heirloom woodworking tools worn smooth from decades of use. Her keen eyes, still sharp at 79, softened with understanding. "True beauty isn't found in fleeting trends. It's about creating something with soul that endures beyond our time." For years, I worked my way up from the bottom, starting as a furniture maker's apprentice and mastering every aspect of the craft. My hands grew strong and sure, marked with the small scars and calluses that told the story of my dedication. The smell of sawdust became my perfume, and the grain of wood my favorite pattern. I pressed forward through exhaustion, self-doubt, and the whispered comments at family gatherings. My father wouldn't even acknowledge me at dinner tables. He acted as if I were invisible, a ghost haunting the periphery of family photos. Nathan mimicked him perfectly, casting looks that mixed pity with superiority, his hands too clean to ever shake mine properly. "You could still change course," my mother would murmur when we were alone, her eyes filled with longing to heal the family rift. I sometimes caught her looking at my projects with hidden admiration. "Your father would welcome you if you enrolled in architectural school. It's not too late to design real buildings instead of furniture." But I was carving my own path quite literally. By 27, I'd established my own workshop, focusing on sustainable materials and traditional techniques with modern applications. We started small, crafting custom pieces for local clients, but our reputation grew steadily as people rediscovered the value of handmade quality in an age of mass production. "And my grandmother?" She beamed with pride. She'd visit my workshop in her elegant clothes, completely at home among the sawdust and the sound of tools. "This," she'd say, running her fingers along the grain of a table I was crafting for a young family, "is a true legacy. You're creating heirlooms that will tell stories for generations." But 6 months ago, everything changed. Grandma Eleanor had a serious accident in her own workshop, the doctor explained, leaving her with complications that gave her just months to live. Suddenly, my father and Nathan stopped ignoring her collection of rare antiques and started calculating their value. I overheard their conversation one evening, their voices low but intense in my father's home office. "We need to secure the family's assets," my father declared, standing beside his architectural awards. "We can't let her collection fall into hands that don't understand its true market value." They weren't talking about strangers. They meant me. But I wasn't focused on the monetary worth of her possessions. My thoughts were on her. I moved into her beautiful Victorian home, arranging a comfortable bed among her beloved tools and hiring nurses, who understood her need to be surrounded by the craftsmanship she'd spent her life preserving. After finishing at my workshop each day, I'd go straight to her side, still in my work clothes, wood shavings clinging to my hair, the scent of linseed oil on my skin. "I love seeing you like this," she'd say, her voice fragile but warm, her fingers tracing the calluses on my palm. "Genuine, dedicated, marked by the honest evidence of your passion." Then one evening, she made an unusual request. "Arrange a gallery showing of my collection tomorrow," she said, her fragile hand finding mine. "Make sure the whole family attends." I hesitated. "Are you certain, Grandma?" A faint, knowing smile crossed her face. "Absolutely, my dear craftsman." The family gathering was tense. My father, mother, aunts, and cousins filled Grandma Eleanor's workshop-turned-gallery. Centuries-old antiques gleamed under carefully positioned lights, telling the story of craftsmanship across generations. The warm scent of wood oil and beeswax filled the air, a stark contrast to the cold tension between family members. Near a magnificent 18th-century writing desk, a distinguished art appraiser adjusted his glasses, waiting patiently. Beside him, in a carved chair that was itself a masterpiece, my grandmother sat, supported by cushions, her delicate hands resting on a book of historical furniture designs. Before the appraiser could speak, my father cleared his throat and straightened his designer tie. "I believe we should first address the importance of preserving these valuable pieces in the proper setting," he stated, his confident voice projecting the authority he was accustomed to wielding in boardrooms. His eyes darted covetously to a particularly valuable secretary desk. But before anyone could respond, Grandma Eleanor raised one thin, elegant hand. "Quiet," she said, her tone gentle yet razor-sharp. Even in her weakened state, she commanded the room effortlessly. My father's mouth tightened into a hard line, but he remained silent. "It's time for you all to hear my intentions," she continued. The appraiser nodded respectfully and opened his leather portfolio, retrieving a carefully organized set of documents. The rustle of papers was the only sound in the room. My father smoothed his expensive silk tie, his fingers sliding over it with practiced ease. Across from him, my brother Nathan smiled slightly, exuding confidence as if he already knew the outcome. "Before I reveal my decisions," Grandma Eleanor began, her bright eyes moving around the room, "I want to explain my reasoning." "That's unnecessary, Mother," my father interrupted, his voice carefully controlled. "We all understand the importance of maintaining these valuable antiques in the family collection." A soft laugh escaped my grandmother's lips, though it held no warmth. "Do you mean the materialism and obsession with status you've been cultivating, Victor?" Heavy silence fell over the room. My father stiffened, his jaw clenching visibly, but he remained quiet. "For years," my grandmother continued, her voice growing stronger with each word, "I've watched this family drift further from its true foundations. You've become obsessed with prestige, appearances, and industry acclaim. You rejected your own daughter simply because she chose an authentic path." She paused, gathering strength. "Tell me, do you even know what your father would have?" Nathan, who had been lounging in his chair with the casual arrogance of assumed inheritance, sat up straighter. "Grandfather was a celebrated modernist architect," he began confidently. But Grandma Eleanor silenced him with a piercing look. "Your grandfather," she announced with unmistakable pride, "began as a furniture maker." A wave of shock rippled through the room. My father's face hardened, his expression growing stormy. "You never shared that detail, did you, Victor?" she pressed, her eyes unwavering. My father shifted uncomfortably as everyone's attention turned to him. I felt my heart racing, pieces of family history I'd never known suddenly falling into place. He worked with his hands for years, she continued, her voice firm with conviction. He drafted building plans at night, but by day he crafted furniture to pay for his education. He took pride in his calluses, his skilled hands, and every piece he created. She paused, catching her breath as if gathering her remaining strength, then nodded to the appraiser. Please continue. The appraiser adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. I, Eleanor Fletcher, being of sound mind, declare the following. What followed stunned our family to its core. My grandmother had completely reorganized her estate. Her historic Victorian home, worth millions, would not be passed down as expected. Instead, it would become a teaching centre for disadvantaged young people eager to learn traditional craftsmanship. A murmur of voices filled the room as my aunts exchanged shocked, whispered comments. The appraiser continued undeterred. Her valuable collection of antique furniture and tools will be placed in a trust managed by Miss Olivia Fletcher. My father jumped up from his chair. This is ridiculous, he snapped, his face flushing. She knows nothing about managing valuable antiques. The appraiser responded calmly. On the contrary, Miss Olivia Fletcher has demonstrated exceptional expertise in traditional craftsmanship. Her sustainable furniture designs have received recognition from the Guild of Master Craftsmen. I felt emotion rise in my throat, a tangible acknowledgement of years of dedication. My chest tightened with feeling, though I fought to maintain my composure. Grandma Eleanor smiled, her gaze warming as she looked at me. I've been watching you, Olivia, she said with quiet admiration. You've created more than beautiful furniture. You've established a principled, forward-thinking workshop that honors tradition while embracing innovation. Nathan's smug smile had completely vanished. My father's anger intensified visibly. I will not accept this, he shouted, his voice bouncing off the wooden beams overhead. You don't deserve a single piece from this collection. Choosing to be a carpenter disgraces the Fletcher name. The room fell completely silent. Grandma Eleanor inhaled slowly, then released it with the serenity of someone who had anticipated this reaction. Victor, she said finally, her voice unnervingly steady. The only disgrace here is your arrogance. My grandmother adjusted herself in her chair, and for a brief moment, I glimpsed the formidable woman who had carved her own success from raw materials. Even now weakened and approaching the end, she held the space with quiet authority. In that case, Victor, she continued, her words deliberate and precise, you should also know that I found your father's original sketchbooks. My father's face drained of colour, his mouth opening slightly, though no sound emerged at first. When he finally spoke, his voice cracked. What are you talking about? From beside her chair, she lifted an ancient leather portfolio and handed it to the appraiser, who carefully opened it. Inside were yellowed sketches of buildings dated decades ago, with my grandfather's signature clearly visible. Your award-winning Riverside Plaza design, she said, her manner as casual as if commenting on the weather, was your father's original concept. He created it before he could afford architectural school, when he was still just a carpenter. The appraiser held up the sketches beside a framed magazine cover showing my father receiving an award for the exact same design. A stunned silence gripped the room. Then chaos erupted. Nathan leapt up, shouting about forgeries and false claims. My aunts gasped, hands covering their mouths in shock. My cousins traded frantic whispers, their expressions a mixture of disbelief and fascination. My grandmother remained composed, unmoved by the commotion. You can contest it if you wish, she said evenly. But the dates and signatures are authentic. The art authentication experts I consulted, who are not your usual contacts, Victor, have verified everything. She allowed her statement to sink in before turning to me. Olivia, there's one more matter. From beside her chair, she retrieved a leather case and handed it to me. This is my final project, she said, her eyes intense with purpose. And I want you to build it. I carefully opened the case and removed the contents. Design plans hand-drawn with exquisite detail. My breath caught as I examined them, a sprawling campus with student housing, modern workshops and expansive gardens. The title at the top read the Eleanor Fletcher Academy of Traditional Craftsmanship. My grandmother offered a faint, wise smile. Your grandfather always dreamed of something like this. A place where young people could master honest trades, regardless of their background. A place that honors genuine craftsmanship, not credentials. Before I could respond, my father stepped forward, frustration evident in every tense muscle. "You're destroying our family's reputation," he hissed. "No," my grandmother replied, her voice unwavering. "I'm restoring it." She sat as straight as her frail body would allow, her perceptive gaze sweeping across the room. The true heritage of the Fletcher family isn't tied to prestige or public acclaim. It's about dedication, integrity, and striving for excellence in whatever you create. She let her words linger in the air before making one final declaration. "There is one additional condition in my will," she said, nodding to the appraiser. The appraiser retrieved another document. Any family member wishing to receive their inheritance. He read clearly, must spend 1 full year practicing a traditional craft, woodworking, furniture restoration, or any hands-on skill they choose. The reaction was immediate. Nathan's face flushed deep red, incoherent protests spilling from his lips. My aunts erupted in loud objections, their voices overlapping in rising indignation. My cousins exchanged alarmed glances, as if the floor had suddenly shifted beneath them. "This is demeaning," my father thundered, his carefully maintained composure finally shattering completely. "No," my grandmother replied, her tone gentle yet resolute. "This is humility, and that's something this family has forgotten." For a long moment silence reigned. No one dared speak. In the weeks that followed, as my grandmother's condition deteriorated, something unexpected began to unfold. Something I never anticipated: transformation. 2 of my younger cousins, who had always depended on family connections, appeared at my workshop one afternoon. They looked uncertain but determined, the smell of wood and varnish foreign to them. "We were wondering," one began, avoiding eye contact with the raw materials around them, "if you could recommend some apprenticeship programs in woodworking." My cousin Anna, fresh from design school where she'd focused on digital modeling, signed up for a traditional joinery course. Then, after weeks of outbursts and tense silence, Nathan arrived at my workshop, dressed in an expensive suit that looked ridiculous among the sawdust and tools. He stood awkwardly, shifting his weight as he surveyed the unfinished pieces around him. "I don't know the first thing about woodworking," he admitted, rubbing the back of his neck sheepishly. "But would you be willing to teach me?" My father held out the longest. The night before my grandmother passed away, I found him sitting by her bedside. His head was bowed, his hands trembling. He looked diminished. Not the commanding architect, but a son who had once respected his mother's wisdom. "I'm sorry, Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible in the quiet room. I became so fixated on recognition that I lost sight of what really matters. She reached out, her weakened fingers brushing against his hand. "Then don't make the same mistake again," she murmured. The next morning, my grandmother, Eleanor Fletcher, passed away peacefully, her gentle hand resting in my calloused one. But her influence lives on. A year later, the Eleanor Fletcher Academy of Traditional Craftsmanship welcomed its first students. What began as my grandmother's final vision had blossomed into a thriving institution, complete with state-of-the-art workshops, comfortable dormitories, and classrooms filled with eager young people learning time-honored skills with sustainable materials. It was more than just a school. It offered a new beginning for many overlooked by a system that valued credentials over capability. After completing his required year of craftsmanship, my father didn't simply return to his old ways, he transformed his entire approach. He chose furniture making as his craft, echoing my grandfather's journey. But rather than abandoning architecture, he redirected his firm's focus. Fletcher Architects no longer catered exclusively to corporate clients and luxury developments. Instead, it evolved into a specialized practice dedicated to sustainable building design. My father and his team now supported small-scale craftsmen, independent woodworkers, and skilled artisans, people who created the soul of our buildings but often struggled against mass production. Unfair competition or undervaluation of their skills. He and his associates advocated for sustainable materials, protected traditional techniques from being lost, and guided small workshops through the complex regulations of the modern building industry. Rather than serving only the wealthy, he now championed those who preserved craftsmanship. Nathan remained with the firm, though his responsibilities gradually shifted. The academy became his primary passion, the project he grew to cherish above all others. Initially, he viewed it as an obligation, merely a requirement to fulfill the terms and move on. But as time passed, his perspective transformed. He began to immerse himself in our mission, participating in curriculum development, visiting workshops and even crafting pieces himself. One day, after completing his first solo furniture piece, he confessed that his proudest professional moment wasn't winning an architectural competition, but standing beside a table he had built with his own hands, knowing a family would gather around it for generations. One afternoon, as we stood together observing the progress of a new workshop building for the academy, he turned to me and said, "Grandmother was right. There's nothing more satisfying than creating something tangible, something that will outlast us." He wasn't just talking about furniture. Today, the academy is thriving. Each year, hundreds of young people walk through its doors, gaining skills that will shape their futures. Some establish their own workshops. Others join firms that now value handcraftsmanship. And every one of them embodies the true heritage of the Fletcher family. Not prestige or position, but dedication, quality, and integrity. As for me, I'm still creating with my hands. Each piece honors my grandmother and her belief that society doesn't need more people chasing hollow recognition. It needs those willing to create, restore, and build with soul. A plaque at the academy entrance reads, "True beauty isn't in what you own. It's in what you create with your hands." My grandmother taught us that sometimes you must break down walls of pride and prejudice to build something truly meaningful. That, perhaps, is the most essential construction of all. Thanks for watching. If you like the story, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. See you next time.